1 month ago, I launched my long-awaited third creator contest, and we have since got over 20 entries, despite this contest being my most difficult one yet. You guys were tasked with making a dream flower-styled part themed around love. Each part was judged on 6 different things: gameplay, decoration quality, theming, style, song representation, and polish. The scores for each part were added together to form an overall score from which the parts will be ranked. I will firstly be announcing the winners from each part and then the overall top 10 parts along with their scores. For a part to get into the level, they must score over 45 out of 60 and at least 5 out of 10 in every aspect. If there isn't a valid entry for a part, then I'll be inviting some creators whose entries were valid yet didn't win the part to build in it. This contest had a lot of really good entries, some of which were so good that I was completely blown away. Through all the fierce competition and weeks of building, let's see who came out on top. In third place for part 1, we have Lux's GD. This part is pretty neat, and although it doesn't include much of the art aspect, it still sticks to the style quite well. However, this part has a pretty strange glitch overlay, which takes away a lot from it in my opinion. There also isn't much variation or song representation outside of the intro segment, with little to no pulses and no noticeable deco change up. Overall, a pretty neat part, definitely deserving of third place. In second place, we have MXMX Adeka. This part had some good song representation, yet still doesn't stick to both the theme and the style much. Overall, a good part though, worthy of second. The winner for part 1 is Femora. The first 3 sections of this part are gorgeous and stick to both the style and the song very well. However, this part really falls off in terms of gameplay in the last part. However, the deco in this part is still great, and the song representation also isn't bad, which is why it got first. Anyway, after the first part comes the part that had the most entries by far. In fact, this one part got over half of all entries in the entire contest. In 6th for part 2 is ZGuy888. This part looks really nice, yet leans more towards the modern side. Also, these overlays on the orb can make it hard to see which orb you're hitting. Overall, a pretty nice part. In 5th is Tech Zero Craft. This part looks really good, yet has some strange structuring and doesn't really fit the theme in the second half. However, this was our first really good part 2 entry and was overall a great part. In 4th for this part, we have Scoop 6. This part looks really good and sticks really well to both the theme and the style. The animations in this part are really nice, yet the background is quite empty and there isn't much depth. I still can't believe this part got 4th just for this part alone, which is really a testament to how many people made part 2 entries and how good they all were. Anyway, with that being said, in 3rd for this part is Zero Zone EO. This part is pretty stunning, with some gorgeous flower-themed visuals, yet some of it feels a bit messy. Still a really stunning part though. Now in 2nd, we have Breadimation. This part is super polished, and the gameplay is very readable. The deco looks really good, yet the part is too dark, and despite the bright pulses, it scored very low on theming, with literally no aspects of love whatsoever. The song representation was okay, yet still could have been better. Overall, a really nice part, deserving of its second place. The winner for part 2 is Lime 62. This part has stunning and vibrant visuals with great colours, and it fits the style superbly. However, the second section of this part is a lot darker and unpolished, yet this part is still amazing and definitely deserving of first. We're now at part 3, and this part is one of the hardest parts, if not the hardest part to decorate I've ever made. So in the final overall ranking, these parts will all be worth 1.5 times more than any other part. In third for part 3 is Blendio. This part has some great ideas going for it, with some brilliant pulses and effects. This part represents the song superbly, and is also really nice and polished. It does its best to fit the style, yet still drifts more to the modern and design side rather than art. However, the background still has a lot of art in it. Overall, a very nice part. Now, as the part 3 entries score 1.5 times more than any other part, and the winning parts scored so closely and highly, they will not be revealed until the final overall ranking. Now for part 4, there is literally only one part that is eligible for ranking, and this part was Merequetengue Peas. This part has some incredible song rep, and fits really well to the theme of level, with some lovely vibrant visuals. However, this part is supremely unpolished, with numerous layering issues and generally just looking messy. Overall though, I really like this entry. Now it's time for the overall ranking, yet before the top 10, we have some honourable mentions. In 11th, almost scraping the top 10, is MXMX Sadeka. He originally was going to be in the top 10, as Breadimation submitted his entry right after the deadline, yet I decided to include it. Overall, this part was really nice, and it has been amazing to see his evolution from the first creative contest, which he won, to now making this awesome part. Here are their scores: gameplay 4 out of 10, deco quality 6 out of 10, theming 7 out of 10, style 6 out of 10, song representation 8 out of 10, polish 8 out of 10, and an overall of 39 out of 60. A very good score to be proud of. In 12th is ZGuy888, who I already covered fully in the part 2 entries. Here are their scores: gameplay 6 out of 10, deco quality 5 out of 10, theming 7 out of 10, style 6 out of 10, song rep 6 out of 10, polish 8 out of 10, with an overall score of 38 out of 60. Finally, for this batch of honourable mentions is Look Says GD in 13th, with scores of gameplay 10 out of 10, deco quality 6 out of 10, theming 2 out of 10, style 5 out of 10, song rep 4 out of 10, polish 7 out of 10, and an overall of 34 out of 60. With these honourable mentions over, it is now time for the top 10. Coming in 10th, we have none other than Femora, with her entry for part 1. This part is really strong visually, with these first 3 sections looking really good and sticking to both the song and the theme very well. However, it falls off in terms of both gameplay and song rep with this final part, which definitely felt like a rushed afterthought, with both unreadable gameplay and little to no song representation, plus the deco quality really falling off. However, despite the last one being lackluster, the other 3 sections were of really high quality, leading to this part placing in 10th. Here are the scores for this part: gameplay 3 out of 10, deco quality 7 out of 10, theming 7 out of 10, style 9 out of 10, song rep 6 out of 10, polish 8 out of 10, overall 40 out of 60. Coming in 9th, we have Meraquetengue P. Despite this part being supremely unpolished, with numerous layering issues and just generally feeling messy, this part not only nailed the theming, but also song representation, with both stunning effects and warm, vibrant colours. There is also this small section which has single-handedly the best song representation out of this whole contest. Their scores are gameplay 6 out of 10, deco quality 6 out of 10, theming 9 out of 10, style 6 out of 10, song rep 10 out of 10, polish 5 out of 10, and an overall of 43 out of 60. Coming in at 8th place is Tech Zero Craft. This first section is really good, with some gorgeous colours and a nice parallax background to go with it. Despite there being little theming, the warm colours make up for it. This dashboard transition into the next section looks really good, yet it makes the next robot click really unsight readable. On the topic of the robot, this part falls off quite a lot. It feels really quite unpolished, with these messy looking saws and strange stars everywhere. However, it is still really nice in terms of colours, with a gorgeous blue and golden colour scheme. Gameplay 8 out of 10, deco quality 8 out of 10, theming 5 out of 10, style 7 out of 10, song rep 8 out of 10, polish 9 out of 10, overall 45 out of 60. Coming in 7th is Scoob6's entry for part 2. As I've said before, his part has some really nice animations, and is probably the best entry in terms of style out of the whole competition. In addition, the colours in this part are almost perfect, despite it being difficult to make colours in art-styled parts work well. However, this part feels really quite empty, and doesn't have much going on in the background. This part would have benefited a lot from a parallax effect in the background and foreground to fill in a lot more space. As well as this, the part is also not very strong in terms of theming. Overall, this part is superb with some great deco and colours, definitely deserving of 7th. Here are their scores: gameplay 9 out of 10, deco quality 8 out of 10, theming 5 out of 10, style 10 out of 10, song rep 7 out of 10, polish 8 out of 10, with an overall of 47 out of 60. In 6th place, we have a really gorgeous part that sadly falls behind in terms of style and theming from Ozone EO. This part has some really creative use of the flower theming, such as this spike that doubles as a bucket. However, the theming isn't really there, and also the style feels a lot different from Dreamflower that was the style set. However, the background in this part is open and full, unlike any other part we've had in the contest. The clever use of objects in the background, such as these trees and mountains, keep lag minimal while still looking stunning. Overall, a really nice part, and I will definitely be keeping my eye on this creator. Here are their overall scores: gameplay 10 out of 10, deco quality 8 out of 10, theming 8 out of 10, style 7 out of 10, song rep 7 out of 10, polish 8 out of 10, overall 48 out of 60. Now, before we get into our top 5, we have another 3 honourable mentions. To start off this batch of honourable mentions, we have Acid Dragon 12 in 14th. This was a pretty neat part made for part 2, yet just fell short of the top 6 I reviewed. A really nice part though, and definitely deserving of 14th. Their scores are gameplay 10 out of 10, deco quality 6 out of 10, theming 2 out of 10, style 4 out of 10, song rep 2 out of 10, polish 6 out of 10, and an overall 30 out of 60. In 15th, we have XX Lemony XX. This is a pretty cool part, yet is quite empty and plain. Here are their scores they got: gameplay 2 out of 10, deco quality 4 out of 10, theming 0 out of 10, style 7 out of 10, song rep 0 out of 10, polish 7 out of 10, and an overall of 20 out of 60. Finally, in 16th, there's Lazuli 123. Their scores are gameplay 3 out of 10, Decor quality 5 out of 10, theming 3 out of 10, style 6 out of 10, song rep 2 out of 10, polish 0 out of 10, overall 19 out of 60. Coming in at 5th is a creator who I've had my eye on for a very long time. Breaking into the top 5 with their entry for part 2 is none other than Breadimation. This part is really beautiful, yet doesn't stick very well to the theming and also falls behind a bit in terms of style. However, this part is still incredible, with some lovely colours and great effects. Overall a brilliant part, worthy of 5th. Here are his scores. Gameplay 10 out of 10, decor quality 9 out of 10, theming 2 out of 10, style 7 out of 10, song rep 7 out of 10, polish 10 out of 10, overall 49 out of 60. The part 4 winner is a part that would not surprise most of you why it's so high up, as it's none other than Lime 62. This part is incredible, with great theming, perfect deco, colours, song rep and more. This part scored the highest out of all the non-part 3 entries, and totally deserved it. Gameplay 9 out of 10, decor quality 9 out of 10, theming 8 out of 10, style 10 out of 10, song rep 10 out of 10, polish 10 out of 10, overall 56 out of 60. A brilliant part, and this probably would have come in 3rd if it weren't for the part 3 entries. On the topic of part 3 entries, in 3rd we have Blendio. This part is so full of life and the deco looks brilliant. It's vibrant and colourful, yet drifts a bit away from the theme and style. However, the song representation in this part is absolutely incredible, and the animations feel alive and tie the part really well together. This part was superb, so here are their scores. Gameplay 6 out of 10, decor quality 7 out of 10, theming 8 out of 10, style 6 out of 10, song rep 10 out of 10, polish 8 out of 10, and an overall of 67 out of 60. Now, there are only 2 entries left, and these 2 entries are so close in quality that their scores are nearly tied. The 2 parts in question are Skywired and Mindgold 3. Skywired is a creator who is an incredible design-styled creator with some awesome levels, some of which deserving of Epic, and an audio-visual approved Easy Demon. However, the competition is just as fierce. Mindgold 3 is a creator who makes incredible art levels and has 8 creator points, yet should have many more. He has multiple featured levels that should have been Epic rated, such as Celestial Echoes, which is an awesome 9-star made for audiovisual CC. Both of these creators made absolutely superb parts. Before we get into who actually won though, I only think that it's right to review both parts before making the final call. Skywired's part is unlike any other I have got for CC so far. It may seem slightly generic at first, with a pretty classic design, opposed to a Dreamflower style, yet with some modern and art aspects mixed in. However, this part is oozing with personality, and is incredibly well made. It's so vibrant and fits the song so well. It really gives the part a sense of speed and feels super polished, with every structure working really well. These swords look incredible and play into the part so well. This background parallax is technically incorrect, yet this feels more like an intentional choice to give this part a real further sense of speed. Then this ship section near the end of the part is executed absolutely perfectly, being really visually interesting with these clusters of glowy spikes that break up the standard spike designs. The colours in this section are just incredible, and the overall vibes in this one section alone are just completely unmatched throughout the whole contest, despite the style not quite being on point. Now, this part overall is absolutely incredible and is a nearly impossible contender to beat. Mindgold 3's part opens with this awesome black and white glow beam effect part, which sets up the explosion of energy really well. However, the lyrics are wrong here, yet I'll let it slide as it's literally a 10-second change to fix. Anyway, there is a huge burst of energy with this awesome action frame transitioning into the part. This part feels a little less vibrant than Skywide's part, yet makes up for that in song representation. The background has some beautiful animations, which must have taken an inordinate amount of time to make. This block design looks great, yet feels a bit too desaturated for my liking. However, the effects and song representation here are just absolutely superb, leading to a really enjoyable and coherent part. Another area where this level shines is in style. I could genuinely see this as a Dreamflower part if it were just themed around, flowers. This end part with the ship is a little underwhelming, especially compared to Skywide's part, yet it still pulls its weight. However, this part is overall incredible, especially in terms of effects, theming, and song representation. Now, with both these parts being reviewed, it is finally time to decide who wins, Skywide or Mindgold 3. The decision was tough, yet after weeks of deciding and hours of playing both, I finally made a decision. In first place, with an overall score of 81 out of 60, beating out second place by literally 1.5 points, is none other than Mindgold 3. In fact, if Mindgold hadn't made a small update to make the colours slightly more vibrant, then the scores would have been tied, and I would have had to pick one just based on what I thought fit the level the best. Anyway, Skywide came in a strong second with 79.5 out of 60, so huge congratulations to them. Anyway, thank you all so much for participating. Despite this contest not getting as many entries as my last one, I'm still grateful for every entry. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for CC4, and I'll see you in the next one.